Hey everyone, welcome to the first week of Stormi Talks True Crime on my Girls Rock Productions channel. On this very first episode, I'm going to be going over a crime that's outcome is pretty controversial to this day, the McStay family massacre. I want to go ahead and give the disclosure that this murder does involve the death of 2 young children, so if that is something you don't want to hear about, just tune in for next week's episode. Now, this crime is pretty recent, and the person convicted of the massacre is still sitting on death row, but there are many people who actually still believe his claims of innocence. I'm going to start by giving you the background on the family and their disappearance. Joseph McStay and his wife Summer were ages 40 and 43 and lived in Fallbrook, California with their 2 young sons, Gianni, age 4, and Joseph Jr., age 3. Joseph owned and operated his own company, Earth Inspired Products, that built decorative fountains, and Summer was a licensed real estate agent. On February 4th, 2010, at 7:47 p.m., a neighbor's surveillance system captured the bottom 18 inches of a vehicle thought to be the McStay family's 1996 Isuzu Trooper. In the surveillance recording, the vehicle's occupants could not be seen. At 8:28 p.m., a call was placed from Joseph's cell phone to his business associate, Charles Chase Merritt, which went to voicemail. Merritt later told police that he ignored the voicemail because he was watching a movie with his girlfriend. Joseph's cell phone pinged in Lower Fallbrook. Over the next several days, relatives of the McStays unsuccessfully tried to contact the family. On February 13th, Joseph's brother Michael traveled to the McStay residence and climbed in and gained entry to the home upon finding an open window in the back. Michael did not find the family at home, and their 2 dogs were in the backyard. On February 15th, Michael phoned the San Diego County Sheriff's Department and reported that his brother and his family were missing. Officers arrived at the home and requested a search warrant, executed on February 19, 2010. Although the search of the house found no evidence of a struggle or foul play, there were indications of a hasty departure. An carton of eggs had been left on the counter, and 2 child-sized bowls of popcorn sat on a sofa. During their investigation, police learned that around 11 p.m. on February 8th, the family's trooper had been towed from the strip mall parking lot in San Isidro, San Diego, near the Mexican border. It was believed that it had been parked there between 5:30 and 7 that evening. The car's location from February 4th to February 8th remains unknown to this day. After their disappearance, it was actually speculated that the McStays left voluntarily, since investigators found searches on the family's computers for what documents do children need for traveling to Mexico and Spanish language lessons. Because their car was found so close to the Mexican border, police reviewed surveillance footage of the pedestrian gate into Mexico. Video recorded the evening of February 8th, released on March 5th, showed a family of 4 resembling the McStays crossing the border. On February 19th, California police notified Interpol to be on the lookout for the family. In April 2013, the San Diego Sheriff's Department announced that they believed the McStays traveled to Mexico. Unconfirmed family sightings were reported in Mexico and elsewhere, perpetrating hopes that they were safe and had left voluntarily. Relatives of the McStays doubted that they would travel to Mexico, saying that Joseph and Summer avoided the country because of the safety threat posed by recent drug wars. Other critics of the theory noted that the McStays had more than $100,000 in their bank accounts, with no withdrawal of funds in preparation for a trip, and their accounts were untouched after their disappearance. Summer's sister even stated that her passport was expired. The circumstances surrounding the family's disappearance and the lack of clues about their whereabouts triggered speculation by amateur sleuths. The radio host Rick Baker published No Goodbyes, The Mysterious Disappearance of the McStay Family. Baker began following the case in 2013 after an interview with Michael McStay on his program. He conducted dozens of interviews on the case, traveling to Mexico, Belize, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic, following leads and reported sightings of the family. In the book, he speculated that Summer might have committed the murders. She was said by many to be controlling, and Joseph was suffering from a chronic illness which has never formally been revealed. When the bodies were later found, Baker offered up a refund to those who purchased the book before the discovery. On November 11, 2013, a motorcyclist found 4 sets of human remains buried in 2 shallow graves in the desert near Victorville, California. Patrick McStay, Joseph's father, was informed of the discovery and phoned a missing person advocate, Jerry Dean, to tell her what he knew. Dean stated in her blog that she had just finished producing a radio show for San Diego station KNSJ when she received the call, and that she asked whether she could tell the followers that what he had told her. 2 days later, 2 sets of remains were officially identified as those of Joseph and Summer McStay. The other 2 sets of remains looked like that of 2 small children, leading them to believe that they were the McStays' young boys. In the grave with Summer and one of the children was a bloody sledgehammer. The deaths were ruled a homicide, and San Bernardino County authorities said they believed the family died of blunt force trauma inside their home, but declined to discuss specifics of their deaths or motive at the time. Investigators and the public focused on Charles Merritt, the last known person to have had contact with Joseph and the first to notice his disappearance. According to state records, Merritt had felony convictions for burglary and receiving stolen property. His most recent felony conviction was in 2001 and was for the theft of $32,000 worth of welding and drilling equipment from San Gabriel Valley Ornamental Ironworks in Monrovia, California. An acquaintance of Merritt's told a San Diego reporter, "I think police should look at him and anyone associated with him." In 2013, Merritt acknowledged that he had spent more than an hour with Joseph the day the McStay family went missing. Merritt, who reportedly was the last person Joseph called from his cell phone, also said that he had passed a polygraph test and did not know anything that could help solve the mystery of the family's disappearance. When asked if he thought Merritt was a suspect, Joseph's father, Patrick, said, "I have to have faith in Chase because I have to have faith in my son. I believe that he trusted Chase and believed in Chase. Do I think Chase is involved? I don't think so, and I truly hope not." In January 2014, Merritt said that he might write a book about the family, alleging that Summer had anger issues and that Joseph had been ill for some time with a mysterious ailment. Joseph's family confirmed that he had had an unexplained illness and that Summer was possessive of her husband, but they called Merritt's suggestions that she was responsible for his illness unfounded. Patrick said, "I truly believe she loved my son." Almost a year after the bodies were discovered, on November 5, 2014, detectives from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department arrested Merritt in connection with the deaths of the McStay family after discovering his DNA had been recovered from their car. They also found that Merritt's phone had pinged off of a cell tower within a few miles of the shallow graves on the same day of the disappearance. He was also known to have family in Victorville. His arrest was announced on November 7, 2014. He was charged with 4 counts of murder, and the district attorney sought the death penalty. In July 2015, Merritt's defense attorney filed a request to have the case dismissed because of the wording used by the prosecution when the charges were filed. According to the arrest warrant affidavits filed in the case, autopsies showed that all 4 of the victims had been beaten to death with a blunt object. This leads investigators to believe that the murder weapon was the 3-pound sledgehammer, which was found in the shallow grave containing the remains of Summer and her son. Investigators testified that they believed the victims were tortured before they were killed. Investigators also believe that Merritt had confronted Joseph and Summer at their house on February 4, 2010. When they refused to give him more money and threatened to fire him, he then beat them and their children to death with the sledgehammer. Then, over the next 9 days, he repainted the walls to cover up all the blood evidence. Prosecutors alleged that Merritt had a gambling problem and killed the McStay family for financial gain. They said that he wrote checks totaling to more than $21,000 on Joseph's business account in the days after the McStay family was killed, and then went on a gambling spree at nearby casinos where he lost thousands of dollars. Merritt's trial was delayed as he had repeatedly fired his attorneys or attempted to represent himself. By February 2016, he had gone through 5 attorneys. In January of 2018, a trial-setting conference was scheduled for February 23rd. Merritt's attorney filed a motion in the San Bernardino Superior Court on April 7, 2018, arguing that Joseph's business and accounting records were hearsay evidence and therefore inadmissible. On May 4th, the case was scheduled to go to trial in July 2018. The trial would finally begin on January 7, 2019 in a San Bernardino court, with both sides making opening statements. On June 10, 2019, a San Bernardino County jury found Merritt guilty of murdering the McStay family. On June 24th, the jury recommended that Merritt be sentenced to death. The court upheld the jury's recommendation, and Merritt was sentenced to death on January 21, 2020. Now, there are many people online who think that the jury got it wrong and that an innocent man is sentenced to death. Some stating that the accounts in QuickBooks could easily be tampered with and it was all just circumstantial evidence. There are some even online that list their theory that it was actually Michael McStay who committed the murders. Eyes for Lies expert explains many incidents and interviews that concerned them back in 2014. They state that Merritt was the one who actually pointed out that the family seemed to be missing, and it was Michael who was just writing it off and ignoring it. Merritt keeps asking the family to stop by to take a look and take it seriously, and it took Michael 9 days to get to his brother's house. Michael said he just believed that his brother and family were on vacation, and yet the dogs were left outside with no food or water, which doesn't make sense. He showed no signs of concern when they first searched the house. Michael also laughs and jokes in his interviews as well, as if all is well. He even boldly states in an interview, "The detectives told me this is not a crime scene and I can do whatever I want," which is also odd considering that they found rotting food as if the family had left in a hurry. That would be something that should be concerning to a loving family member. In the video interview inside the McStay house with Tim Miller, someone off film says to Michael, "They didn't just get abducted or forcibly removed from the house?" And Michael responds, "No. Well, no. No, somebody could have just said, 'Hey man,' just like happened before. Chase said, 'Oh, my shop got broken into. I can't finish your jobs. I've got thousands of dollars to get out.' It could have been, 'Hey Joe, I'm coming over. I'm almost there. I'm almost there.' He got 5 calls. 'Hey, I'm here. I'll meet you at the bank,' or whatever. My brother was going to give him more money again. Who knows? It could have been that. That's a possibility too. But I can tell you one thing. They got pulled away from the house by somebody that was comfortable to them." Now, Eyes for Lies expert states that they find it odd that Michael immediately points the finger towards Chase so early on, which is a pretty good observation. When the bodies were found, Michael again is acting odd. His crying seems fake. And to make things worse, he says at the end of his speech, "I know everyone in America loves the McStays, and we're going to find this individual, or individuals. I know the sheriffs, the FBI, everybody just wants to bring justice, and if it's the last thing I do, I just want to know, when it's over." Ending with a laugh, he then buries his face, comes back up to the microphone, and says, "That's all," as he gives an expression of content. Now, this laughter wasn't just a nervous laughter, according to Eyes for Lies. They say it's as if he finds something funny, and he wants to hide it in nearly every interview. He even admits to going to his brother's house multiple times since it was declared not a crime scene, and freely admits to taking his brother's computer. He also asked if anyone found any secure digital cards from his sister-in-law's camera lying around the house to give them to him, which is also pretty strange. Before the bodies were even found, he actually even made a statement in a 2010 interview. "My fear is that I'm looking for 2 adults' shallow graves and my 2 nephews' crosses." This is eerily similar to how the bodies of his relatives were actually found 3 years later. Another suspect that could have been involved is Dan Cavanaugh. Cavanaugh has always been an interesting character in this mystery. Like Chase Merritt, there's no convincing evidence actually connecting him to any element of this crime. Kavanaugh's alibi was placed in serious question by the defense at trial. An ex-girlfriend of Kavanaugh's claimed that he confessed to the crime. However, her testimony is inconsistent with the facts of the case. But still, if being fired from Joseph McStay's company makes one a suspect, then Kavanaugh is absolutely a suspect. It has never been proven that Chase Merritt was fired by Joseph McStay. Dan, on the other hand, is well documented as parting ways with Joseph around the time of the murders, even though he seems to deny this in the Two Shallow Graves documentary. And Dan profited way more than any allegation of profit made by Merritt. Kavanaugh appears to have ended up with well over $200,000 richer post-murders, whereas Merritt only received monies he was actually already owed. For years, Kavanaugh would only show up in one or two broadcasts covering this case early on. He would claim in these rare interviews that he was part owner of Earth-inspired products. Patrick McStay has adamantly denied this on Facebook, stating that Dan is most definitely not Joseph's business partner and never was. There were also apparently numerous amounts of money taken by Kavanaugh from Joseph's PayPal accounts, starting, you guessed it, after the disappearance on February 6, 2010. Accounts he appears to have hacked into before anyone knew that the family was even missing. There were also the heated emails back and forth between Joseph and Dan shortly before the McStays went missing. At the trial, it was discovered that Dan had indeed been fired. The partnership between the two men was terminated, and Joseph was in the last stages of buying Kavanaugh out when Joseph and his family met their sudden and violent end. The two men Kavanaugh sold the EIP to in 2011, despite having no entitlement to the company at that time, had ties to the medical marijuana trade and were arrested not long after the murder, which sparked all kinds of intrigue. And this is where we learned during the trial that Kavanaugh profited over $200,000 after Joseph's disappearance. Then, close to the start of the trial, an ex-girlfriend or friend came forward with a remarkable story. According to opening statements by the defense, this friend of Dan's approached the FBI, San Bernardino investigators, and the defense with claims that Dan had admitted to abducting and murdering the McStays. During the ID documentary Two Shallow Graves, we get to see this ex firsthand. But again, there were discrepancies between her account and evidence. This ex would never take the stand during the trial, and no one could find Dan Kavanaugh for all 5 months of the trial, as he was sought to be a witness for the defense. Dan Kavanaugh did appear in the Two Shallow Graves documentary. He admitted on national television to hacking Joseph McStay's financial accounts not just after Joseph went missing, but well before that. This admittance does actually support Chase's claim that the reason for the change in QuickBooks from internet to desktop was to prevent Kavanaugh from further hacking these accounts. It is also believed that Dan was spreading discord with Metro Sheet Metal, telling the owner that Joseph was cheating him out of percentages of the sales, which is possibly what would have led him to being fired. These things all being pointed out do make me wonder if the right man was arrested. Yes, the bodies being found near Merritt's family lived and his cell phone pinging near the site of the shallow graves does make him seem very suspicious. Maybe he was involved, but I don't think he was the one who was the perpetrator. Chase Merritt is still awaiting execution on death row. Do you think the state of California got the right guy, or do you think the Michael McStay or the Dan Kavanaugh theories hold water? I'm leaning more and more towards Dan Kavanaugh, and when watching Two Shallow Graves on ID, I actually wondered why the investigators were so quick to drop him as a suspect. Give your thoughts in the comments below, along with any suggestions you might have on another crime case for me to cover. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my Girls Rock Productions channel and explore some of my other playlists while you're here. Tune in next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern to Stormi Talks True Crime for the next case. Until then, have a great week and stay safe.